Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Emotional Intelligence, the Game Changer. I just wanted everybody to recognize that human beings are present, so let's handle with care. Everybody got it? Cool. I happen to believe, here we go. I happen to believe that innovation creates value and strategy captures value. Human beings deliver value or they don't. Emotional intelligence is not a soft skill. And anyone in this audience who've held their tongue rather than making a sharp response to somebody, or decided to keep their gun in the holster and not blow somebody away, or decided to not flip the finger at somebody who just cut them off on the highway, you know there's nothing soft about engaging that discipline. This morning, I want to sort of introduce an idea about how you can take your power back, about how you can actually reduce your stress, simplify your decisions, increase your satisfaction in living and in all the relationships you have, and learn how to recover more effectively from the unexpected. Not only taking your power back, but moving you from being a pawn on everybody else's game board to freedom by choice. Does that make sense? Okay, this is not new stuff. As a matter of fact, Walter Wriston, former CEO of Citigroup, back in the early 70s, made this statement: the person who figures out how to harness the collective genius in their organization will blow the competition away. Note, collective genius. To me, this is emotional intelligence in action. All right, now, here's our learning agenda. And I want to speed this up because I'm probably the only thing between you and noon and getting out of this room. Not to minimize how important this material is, but hopefully you're going to take away a few things. I expect to answer the question about what is emotional intelligence. I expect to answer the question about why is it relevant in your life. I expect to go through a teeny bit of the research and science behind emotional intelligence, and then suggest, offer, provide a couple of strategies for increasing your emotional intelligence. I call them smart skills, and I would ask every leader in this auditorium to refrain from saying they're soft skills, because that undermines the real power of developing these skills. So unlike IQ or personality, you can actually develop the smart skills of emotional intelligence. So are you strapped in and ready to roll? I am. All right. The definition for emotional intelligence that I like to use comes from Dr. David Wexler, who did work for the military on intelligence in the collective, IQ, personality, and EQ. And he said it's the aggregate or global capacity of an individual to act purposely, think rationally, and deal effectively with their environment. In other words, problem solve about emotional exposure, risk, and uncertainty. What did we just have here in that film? It didn't work properly. Uh-oh, I could have flown off the handle, jumped off the bridge, who knows what. But instead, you manage the unexpected in a different way, okay? So here's my thinking. If you don't remember much of what we talk about today, I want you, as an aerial view, to be thinking, did I act purposely? Was I thinking rationally? Did I deal effectively with that unexpected occurrence? Did I recover from the unexpected in an appropriate way to my standard of care? So, act, think, deal. Cool? Can we say it out loud one time? Act, think, deal. All right, you're on a roll. Sounding good. Now, here are some of the dimensions we look at for emotional intelligence, because someone with a high EI, high emotional intelligence, is capable and able to harness the collective genius in their organization to get where they're going. Why? Because they act with purpose, they are thinking rationally, and they deal effectively with all the risks of everyday living. Actually, what they've done is they've already determined in advance what they want that relationship to look like after an engagement with you. So, acting with purpose, instead of saying something that would be self-destructive and counterproductive, you are an encourager. And I want you to be thinking, after every engagement with any human being, are they more committed and productive after an engagement with you? Or are they full of resistance and ill will? And in fact, that resistance and ill will spins out of control into a downward spiral. So we're either a tax or a dividend in the lives of the people we touch. Cool? All right, the 4 dimensions are about your personal and social competencies. How you see yourself, self-awareness, emotional self-awareness. Then once you know better, can you do better? In other words, now emotional self-control. And then your social competencies. Do you understand your impact in the world and how the world impacts you? And then further, how are you going to apply what you know so that the relational leader in you shows up in every circumstance? Does this make sense? There are competencies within each of these dimensions. We're not going to cover them this morning because of our short time frame. However, this aerial view should give you a few takeaways. All right? I want to see if I'm missing anything. All right, not at all. Next. You've already seen this. I guess we didn't delete it, so we're getting rid of that guy. Why is emotional intelligence relevant? Because performance outcomes matter. Because emotions matter at work. I want you to identify, just think about in your own organization, identify those emotions that actually block high-performance teamwork. They increase costs because you have to do do-overs. They create suspicion and doubt in an organization. Think about this. Why is emotional intelligence important and relevant? Because performance outcomes matter. Now I want you to be thinking in your organizations, okay, what are the elements that I've identified, I've seen it or I feel it, that have actually promoted high-performance teamwork? Has actually made things go faster, costs go down, everybody's having a big payday. There's confidence. There's creativity. There's innovation as an operative word that actually produces a yield. Now, who wants to shout out some of the elements that block high-performing teams? Things you've seen or felt. Ego. Edging God out. Beautiful. Who's next? Trust or distrust, suspicion perhaps. Who else? Fear. Ooh, that drove me for 30 years. What's next? Anger. How do you manage that in a way that actually helps you channel the emotions in other people more constructively and productively? Because this is about you understanding your emotional portfolio so you can manage yourself effectively. Then you have capacity and capability to really channel the emotions in other people more constructively. Is there another something you've seen or felt? Defensiveness. On fire. Selfishness. Greed. Jealousy. Feeling unappreciated. Denial. What was another one? Inequality. It's not fair. Low self-esteem. We don't have a dignity in our voice. Lack of accountability. Oppression. Sadness. Favoritism. You guys are doing quite well. I think you've lived this and seen it yourself. And these are things, emotions, activities that actually block high-performing teams. Now, on the other side of that coin, what are the elements, the emotions, what you've seen, thought, or felt in organizations that actually promote high-performing teamwork? Transparency. Passion. Compassion. Authenticity. What did I hear? Empathy. Clarity. Wasn't it? Empowerment. Encouragement. Fairness. Vision. Inclusiveness. Listening. Woo! That's high on the social awareness. In fact, if you learn how to listen for the unfamiliar, you're going to open up a beautiful thing. In fact, to me, it's the antidote of people who feel unappreciated and under-recognized. All right, you're doing well. So you've got these elements. And we're saying, ooh, how can we foster a climate where creativity and innovation can be operationalized so it produces a yield that inspires other people? All of us in this room can produce results, but if they don't inspire other people, we've missed the win. All right. Now, why is it relevant to you as an individual? To me, it's your global passport. I don't care what the cultures are, what the barriers of time and space are. To me, emotional intelligence is not only giving you your power back, but actually the keys to freedom, because you can now choose. I was a half a century old before I realized I had choices, and that in fact I was in charge. I should take charge. Now, trust. Oh my gosh, there's an economic value to trust. Can you build, instill, and inspire trust in another human being? Not by what you say, but by your modeling. And then for an organization, it's a sustainable competitive advantage. For you, I believe if you develop the smart skills of emotional intelligence and practice it, that in fact what you will have is an absolute advantage. It is not bound by time and space. And isn't our charge as leaders, isn't it our charge as leaders to model the way? Don't talk loud, just show up and do it. Day in, day out, day in, day out. That is not easy. In fact, the prescriptions I'm going to suggest to you are very simple. They're just not easy. It requires discipline. It requires motivation. In fact, I hope I have a screen that says something, and I will later. So what's the science behind emotional intelligence? I'm not a scientist, but what research I read and learned about is that we have two brains, a thinking brain and a feeling brain. Hello. In fact, the thinking brain evolved from the feeling brain. This is interesting. So the neocortex, which you see on the screen, is our executive centers. It's our governor on our emotions, okay? Then the limbic system, which is the feeling brain, has a little baby organ called the amygdala. Is it there? No. There it is, that little guy. That guy's always on the alert to protect us physically. It's what's kept us safe for the millennium. Fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah, I feel some danger coming. This guy's on like I read about. But here, guess what? That vocabulary, those three little baby words, they don't serve us in the real world, especially not in the 21st century office condition. You know, you don't get the promotion you want. You're going to pull out the 357 and blow them away? I don't think so. Or you run home to mama, get under the covers, and hide. So you flight. Or how about freezing? Deer in the headlights. Somebody is just all these expletives at you, or doing unconventional things, stamping their feet, slamming the door, knocking the stuff off the desk, and you're frozen. You do not know how to respond to that. And the fear, which we talked about, is a gripper and often prevents us from taking any kind of action. And sometimes we don't get angry enough to take profitable action. Does this make sense? I'm not losing anybody here, am I? Let's keep the dialogue going. Now, the brainstem, of course, is the guy that takes care of all the unconscious stuff, like the breathing and the digestion. Here's the key about emotional intelligence. If you really want to know how you feel and the truth of a situation, how you feel, listen to the interior. Our brains are supposed to be our gifts and instruments for living an abundant and full life. However, most of us are tools of our brain. Oh, I just can't stop thinking about that. Oh, they did this. I just can't stop talking about it. Huh? Who's in charge? Who runs who here? Think about it. The next time you hear somebody rehearsing a wrongdoing or a complaint, not only walk in faith, but say, now who's in charge here? Are you a tool of your brain? Or are you using your brain as an instrument from God for abundant living rather than scarcity mentalities? Think about it. This is just an idea. Accept, reject, modify anything I'm saying here. You've all practiced it and you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. So, here is a cognitive psychologist, Dr. Donald Norman, who tries to explain to us about emotions. Now, an emotion is a personal stimulus is a personal reaction to a stimulus. So here's an example of how we might have a negative emotional hijack. In other words, we completely forget about awareness. So here we have a stimulus. And what happens is it goes into the little sensory store right here at the short end of our minds, goes back into the deep filing cabinet of our history. It completely bypasses awareness, and now we have what we call an unconscious response, knee-jerk reaction, no doubt, which is a negative emotional hijack. When this happens to us, this is when we leave people full of resistance and ill will. We said something thoughtless, and if we're in charge or we're peer-to-peer, it's destructive to ourselves, but it's counterproductive to other people. Now, here's a situation where the heart and the head, the thought and the feelings are aligned, where emotion over intellect is the same as intellect over emotion. This is where now you've brought in awareness into the situation and emotional self-control. So rather than accident and force, you're getting reflection and choice. By the way, reflection is a leadership competency that we as human beings today do not engage in with any regularity. You are to be applauded. You're spending the whole weekend stopping, thinking, observing, and then taking some action. I know busy's popular. I was busy for 30 years. My dance card was full from 5 in the morning till midnight, 30 years going. Well, busy doesn't mean you're effective or productive. Emotional intelligence and developing those smart skills enables you to be selective and therefore more effective. Because anytime you can reduce your stress and start simplifying your decisions, it's because you've decided in advance to choose a different life. And in fact, I can take a page from that. You're designing an exceptional life, your life. The dash between when you were born and when you died is going to be full. All right, so here's what this looks like. You've gotten a stimulus. It now goes to the sensory store and the filter as well as awareness. And look how big awareness is. Awareness not only goes back up and down the long-term memory, but now you've got a response that really meets your standard of care, your brand of operation. Now, is there any question about what you're seeing here? Do you get it? We've all seen the knee-jerk reaction, and we wish we could have taken it back or put our hand in our pocket. We gave somebody a knuckle sandwich, or we said something regrettable. We're the ones that always look bad, by the way. And remember that old show? The devil made me do that. No, no devil made you did it. You did it. Now, here are some short strategies. I'm going through this like a house of fire, peoples. If you want to read more about emotional intelligence, there's just tons of articles about it. Please help yourself to it. And more recently, there's a book out called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Bradbury and Graves. It is a handbook for you, and it has a little online appraisal, pretty strong. You can take it twice. My recommendation is read the book, take it, and practice. Because quite frankly, no matter what you do, science has told us there's only two real ways for you to make a change, and that is a high degree of fire in the belly, motivation, and secondly, a practice, which is the natural training system, but most people don't want to do it, all right? I want you to be able to take your power back, and I'm going to show you how, if you're willing. This is a control continuum. Notice, there's zone 1, there's zone 10. What are all the areas in your life over which you have zero control? Now, this is the interactive part. Don't all answer at once. What? Well, hello, Washington, D.C. I will shout that out. Other people. The weather. Good, the weather. When the sun goes up, when the sun goes down. Traffic. The price of anything. Time. You're doing good. You're not getting too tired. All right. So, and how do we feel when we have zero control? Frustrated. That's one emotion, you bet.
Less well than if you were in control.
Less well than if you were in control. Anybody want to say anything else? Angry. Helpless. Stressed. Captured. And vulnerable. And guess what? When we don't feel well, we don't do well. So on the performance meter, the performance choice we make really reduces our performance competency and capability. When we don't feel well, we don't do well. Would you agree? I didn't hear it. Yes. That's what I want to hear. You're still alive. Now, since that's true, Over what do we have absolute and total control? I heard ourselves, I heard our reaction, our thoughts, our thinking, how we spend our time, invest our money, use our resources, value relationships. You can tell a lot about a person there. Let me do a couple of clicks here. Everything you answered on the first part about weather, traffic, and other people is on fire. The next part is you. All of us in this room are in charge of what we think, what we say, what we do. Oh, and by the way, and how we respond to other people, places, and circumstances. Would you agree? Yes. All right. With that in mind, why in the world would anybody sacrifice the high of a zone 10 where our performance is high? Because when we feel good, we do well. Would you agree with that? But why would we sacrifice the high of a 10 to go to the low of a 1? And we do it routinely. We hear people constantly complaining about the weather, getting angry and mad about the traffic, or gossiping about other people. Are we aware that we're going from the high of a 10 to the low of a 1? So start asking yourself, in what power zone do you want to be living in? Because you as leaders are responsible for the conversational environment, both inside you and outside of you. Be mindful. So I say, take your power back. That's part of emotional intelligence. Determine in advance what power zone you want to be in. You can even make some friends here. Make them your trust buddies. Say, gosh, I was in that power zone 1 for a long time. I didn't realize most of my employees are too. I guess I'm modeling the wrong thing here. I've been complaining about other people. I've been worried about the weather. You know, the Cardinals are playing, and that traffic. My gosh, I don't want to leave at 5 o'clock. I get up earlier. Whew, can you imagine the energy drain? Can you imagine the energy drain? You've got a power outage, a leakage of the highest order. On the other hand, somebody gives you an insult. Now you're in charge, large and in charge. You're in control of what you think, say, and do. Because this is a group of people in faith, maybe what we offer is a prayer of inspiration for them. In fact, when they're blowing you away and your hair is blowing backwards, and finally they're out of breath, instead of you saying, you're fired, or pulling out the gun and blowing them away, what you say is there more? Can you tell me more? Where else does it hurt? I am listening with a whole heart to you. When was the last time somebody, anybody, listened to you with a whole heart? Undivided attention. There's power in 60 seconds. And I think we might have time. I might offer you one example of that. I don't know if we do have time. Does what I'm saying make sense? Are these some simple takeaways? Okay. Love it. I discovered that a brand is what I say I am and what I do. I discovered, too, that my reputation is what others think about me and what they say about me. Where is usually the brand gap between what I say and what I do? There's a huge delta for most of us. Hello. So, but it's a matter of integrity. So that both sides of the coin, brand and reputation. Now, I'm going to use the name Bill Gates. I don't think you're going to have one problem with give me a one-word brand for Bill Gates. Can someone shout out one word that brands his reputation? Microsoft? Windows? Philanthropist? Philanthropic? Hello? Aggressive? Genius? I'm surprised I haven't heard rich. Did we miss that one? Okay, no problem. Now, on the other side of the equation, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, rich. Compassion. Caring. Love. Sacrificial. Selfless. Servant leader. Okay, well, guess what? Everybody has a one-word brand for you, too. And what is it? Maybe your homework today is don't fish for a compliment, but set it up just the way I did. And ask them, what's a one-word brand for me? Set it up the way I did so it doesn't look like you're fishing. And find out, is it the brand you want? Is it the reputation you want? We spend lots of money on mining our reputations in finance and in operations. We rarely spend any investment in our reputations. I'm inviting you to consider that part of emotional intelligence is understanding your brand and align it with your reputation. Your brand depends on it. You saw it in the social media. Okay. Here's something else. Phraseology that we now use with great regularity. These are emotional external motivators. There's one that's internal on this. Now, I just want you to reset something in your mind. How many in this room said, I have to today for anything? I see one hand. You're brave. Thank you. I see 2, 3. You mean 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. I'm seeing a few 8. You know, this is the interactive part. Only 8 people in this group said I have to, said it or thought it. Okay. I just want to alert you as leaders, when we say I have to, internally or externally, remember you're responsible for the conversational environment. That is a motivator by fear. And over a period of time, that will lead to bitterness and resentment. Now, I lived in fear for 30 years. I know it well. And fear will keep you alive. Duck! I might get hit. But as a steady diet, it will eat you alive. It is not a motivator that actually is sustainable, okay? Now, here's another one, duty. Ooh, that feels so much more gratifying. Duty as a motivator. I'm obligated to somebody. You invited me to a party, I have to invite you back. You know, oh, they got me a present. I got to get them a present back. It's obligation. Over a period of time, if I'm saying I ought to or I should, you're shoulding all over yourself. Did I say that? I said should, you know. So think about it. But again, over a period of time, that leads to bitterness and resentment. My obligation. Yeah, I'm more gratified by saying it's my duty. Did I choose it? Now be thinking about this. These are all areas for you to take your power back. Now here's my suggestion. If you're going to do it anyway, which, oh, by the way, how many in this room when they married said, I want to? Oh, I don't see many hands. Okay, I see a few hands. Good to know. I want to. Now that was an internal emotional motivator that energizes the spirit and is actually sustainable because you don't count the cost or the time. However, if you're going to do it, and many of us maybe having been married, we now are saying I have to, or I had to, I should, and you got to ask yourself what changed. Well, it can change back because if you're going to do it anyway, I'm encouraging you to say, I want to. Now, let me hear, I want to. I want to. Let's say it again. I want to. I want to take out the garbage. I want to do the dishes. I want to pick up the children. I want to go get the cleaning. I want to go to work because it's meaningful and important. I want to sit down, turn off the computer, the TV, and the buzzer, ring, and listen to somebody with a whole heart. I want to. Now, I should ask everybody how many said I ought to or I should today. I don't see any hands. You might have thought it. I saw one. Okay. You might have. And if you're doing it unconsciously, this is why I want to call you back to the present moment. I want to. Let's just say it one more time. I want to. And then do it. Because when you're saying I want to, you've changed the channel in your instrument that's called the mind and the heart, and you're bringing the whole you to that engagement. When you're picking up the children, you don't hand them their iPhone or a little digital thing. You turn off the tunes, you turn off the radio, you get off the cell phone, and you say, what's the best thing that ever happened to you today? You call them to mind, because it's not quantity with people, it's the quality. And we're probably going to make time for a 60-second deal. All right, do we have it? I want to. Now then, you're in charge. All right. I lived in fear. So I was living in the house of fear. That's always the future. Just to give you an idea about your emotional portfolio, here's some words that are all familiar to us. I want you to look at this a moment and say to yourself, am I living in yesterday? Because the past is history. History, okay? Am I living in the future? Or am I living in the present moment? I'm going to promise you this. The more present you are, the higher degree you are close to the presence, with a capital P, the big physician. And you really experience the power of freedom of choice. You're content in the package you're in right where you are. It's not someday I'll speaking. The true joy of living, just seeking the joy of living, and the power of love. You taste it, you feel it, you sense it. Now, if you're living in the house of unforgiveness, you know shame, blame, bitterness, resentment, to name a few. Go ahead and think to yourself, where am I living? Because if you're in the past, think again what an energy drain, how much energy it takes to go from the past to get to the present. If you're living in the house of fear, you've got stress and worry, and you are overwhelmed. That's why emotional intelligence is so powerful, because it helps you deal with the unexpected and the risks of everyday living. Quite frankly, I don't have a guarantee of another breath, and neither do you. So living in the future doesn't sound like a good idea to me, because what are the elements? They're all things that rob you of the energy and the joy of being right where you are. Does this make sense? Now, I failed today to bring my 5 balls of rubber bands. I was going to throw them into the audience. I got so enthused about getting here at 9 o'clock, I forgot my balls. I mean, my rubber band balls. Scratch that, Tim. Anyway, I was going to ask you all, pull a little rubber band off of the balls and put one around your wrist. Because, and this is the truth, when I was practicing getting present, because I was always overwhelmed and fearful, I mean, just fearful, every time I was aware of those emotions, I would snap the rubber band around my wrist, and literally, it was black and blue. I had to switch to the other wrist, trying to get myself to the present moment, because I promise you this, those rubber bands hurt. When you snap one on your wrist, it goes sting. Oh, you're right back to the present. Now, it is fun. I guarantee you, people think I was roped up or something. I don't know. I don't worry about it too much. But I'm just going to say, they ask a lot of questions, and I don't answer them. I give them a rubber band. So here's what I'm suggesting to you. If you find you're in the past or the future, put the rubber band around your wrist and snap it. Every time you become aware of those emotions, that awareness should then allow you to say, pause, reflect, examine, and recalibrate. Act purposely, think rationally, and deal effectively. Cool? Is this making sense? All right. Now, who wants to shout out, as they're looking at this, in what arena you're living in, mostly? What are those emotions you know very well? Future. So that's the house of fear. Can you name one of those emotions that you see on this screen that you know so well? Worry, stress, anxiety. Woo! That's smoking. Now, everyone in here is walking in faith. That has been absolutely evident to me. And our time is sacred. So we waste it when we're not in the present moment. Because the greater the degree of being present, we are closer to the presence. You want to taste your life. You want to feel it. You want to sense it. And that models that beacon within you to all you serve. When I look at leaders, I think I'm not at the top. When I bought the company I was manufacturing in, I thought the buck stopped here. I quickly learned the buck starts here. I'm to remove all the barriers. I'm to open up the portals for communication. I am to act with emotional intelligence so that my people see what building, instilling, and inspiring trust looks like in action. Remember Walter Wriston, the person who figures out how to harness the collective genius of the people in his or her organization will blow the competition away. Performance outcomes matter. So, how about in the house of fear? What's the emotion we most see? Did I hear stress and worry and anxiety? What about in the past? Regrets, bitterness, resentments, blame, shame? All right, regret. That takes a lot of energy out of us, regretting, because the past is history. You can't undo it. What you can do in the package you're in right now is live to the full. Engage your mind as that instrument of peace. All right, I said this earlier, but it is an emotional intelligence alert. 2 scientifically proven methods for making emotional intelligence become a part of your DNA. Practice and internal motivation. And I would suggest you find a trust buddy, a peer, a third party that's neutral, somebody who's got your back, so that when you're practicing a couple of items, you can always say, hey, how did I do? Am I getting better? Oh, I was in zone 1 for these couple of days, but now I'm up to zone 5. I'm improving. Always encourage yourself. But we don't grow, we don't learn, we don't develop in a vacuum. We do it with the help of other people. So engage the members around you. They're going to be the biggest beneficiaries, I promise you that. Cool? Okay. So motivation and practice, those are the 2 things. Here's some cliff notes for you. Emotional self-awareness, the little tagline is get present, because Socrates said, know thyself. Do you know what you're willing to live, love, and die for? I didn't at a half a century. I do now. Emotional self-awareness is answering those universal questions we all ask about identity, importance, and impact. So think about it. Number 2, emotional self-control. Once you know better, can you do better? This is the challenge. This is the question. Social awareness. Think about it. I'm here to suggest to you, part of becoming an absolute advantage is you say what you mean and you mean what you do. You don't need rank, title, or position. You're going to have power and influence if you're an individual that says what you mean and means what you do. Period. End of story. Most people don't do it. So you got that tagline? Last, relational leadership. Move from the silo you're in or the silo other people have contained you within to become seamless. Instead of one hat at work and another hat at home and another hat with your childhood friends and another hat with your business associates and a 5th or 6th hat for this, that, and the other. Just in the package you're in. Be comfortable in your own skin. Show up, be present, and be who you are wherever you are. Remember, life's an experiment. It isn't about success or failure. Remove the word or and replace it with the word and, because life's about options. Options. I'm going to experiment. And that's what this is. It's a lifetime journey of practicing, reconfiguring your motor neurons right now. Those neural pathways are pretty well plasticized by the time you've got some sparkles in your hair. The best time to start this emotional intelligence training and education is really teenager and farther. In fact, they're doing experiments with little baby children in primary schools so that they can understand and give expression to their own emotions. It's important to know your emotional portfolio beyond fight, flight, and freeze, and then to take action upon it. Does this make sense? All right, let me check the time. What is the correct time? 11:50? We probably don't have time for the power of 60 seconds in wholehearted listening. But if I get invited again, we'll do it. Meanwhile, let me see what we've got here. Gary, words to lead by. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.